sometimes it feels like you're just drowning in information.
Right.
Right. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out what actually matters, how to get properly informed without, like, reading for a week straight. It's tough. That's what we try to do here with the Deep Dive, be that shortcut for you. And today, we're diving deep into something pretty fundamental in modern software, Spring Boot. Maybe you've heard the name thrown around, maybe not. But the questions are, what is this thing? Why is it so important? And really, why should you care? Especially if you want to grasp how software gets built today.
Exactly. And to get to the bottom of that, we've gone through, well, quite a stack of articles, some research developer discussions. Our job here is basically to boil all that down, pull out the really key insights for you.
Right. So our mission today, unpack Spring Boot, understand its purpose, see its impact, and maybe most importantly, show how even if you're just starting out, you can actually get your hands dirty with it. Okay, so let's get into it. What is Spring Boot really, when you strip it all back?
Okay, so at its heart, Spring Boot is this really powerful tool and surprisingly beginner-friendly, actually. It's mainly for building applications using Java. Think of it like a specific focused extension of the bigger Spring framework. That framework's been around for ages, super popular for building solid software. Spring Boot itself came out around 2014 from Pivotal Software. And their whole goal was basically to make developers' lives easier, to cut down on all the complex setup and configuration that used to take forever. It's like a simpler path to creating web apps or the backend for mobile apps, other software systems, without getting totally bogged down in those initial fiddly technical steps.
Okay, so it's like getting a pre-assembled toolkit. Everything you need to just start building is already there. So you can focus on the actual thing you're trying to create, not the plumbing underneath. That sounds pretty significant.
It really is. And that pre-assembled idea comes from a few key features. They're designed for convenience, but you're not locked in. First, there's this automatic setup. Spring Boot is smart enough to figure out what your project likely needs based on what you add. Like, if you say you're building a website, bam, it includes a web server automatically. No extra steps.
Okay.
Then you have these things called starters. They're like ready-to-go packages for common tasks. Need to connect to a database, there's a starter for that.
Yeah.
Building a web interface, there's a starter for that too. Makes things super quick.
Got it. Like modules you just plug in.
Exactly. And it has built-in servers. Common ones like Tomcat or Jetty are literally inside your application. You don't need to install and manage a separate web server, which used to be a whole separate headache.
Right.
And a huge one. Simplified configuration. Remember those massive, complicated XML files?
Oh, yeah, nightmare fuel sometimes.
Totally. Spring Boot uses sensible defaults for most things, so it just works out of the box usually. But, and this is key, you can easily tweak things if you need something specific. It's not a black box.
Okay, that's good to know. You're not sacrificing control.
Not at all. And finally, it includes production-ready features, things like health checks, metrics, ways to manage the app once it's live. So it's not just for development, it's built for the real world.
So, for someone new to all this, it effectively hides a lot of that initial complexity. The analogy you sometimes hear is like using a cake mix instead of measuring out flour, sugar, baking soda. You still bake the cake, you still get a great result, but that initial setup is just done for you.
Precisely. It lets you focus on the recipe, on the creative part, much faster. Now, why do developers actually choose it? I mean, beyond the convenience, it boils down to making the whole process faster, easier, and importantly, more reliable, especially for the kind of modern cloud-based systems that everything runs on these days.
Okay, here's where I think it gets really interesting. Speed.
Yeah.
How much faster are we talking? Because hours or days of setup, that just sounds painful. How does Boot bypass that?
Oh, it was painful. I remember those days well. Just getting a basic Java web app to say hello world could genuinely take hours, sometimes days. You'd be wrestling with database connections, setting up the server, configuring security layers.
Yeah.
It was a lot of boilerplate. Spring Boot just wipes most of that away. You use a starter, like we mentioned, for web apps. It pulls in the server, sets up the basic configuration. You can literally start writing the code for your actual features, like a login page or displaying some data almost immediately. It's a night and day difference in terms of getting momentum.
So less time fighting the tools, more time building the thing.
Exactly. And that leads to the next point, reducing errors. When you're manually configuring all those different parts, it's really easy to make a mistake. A typo in a setting, a wrong version number. These little things can cause big headaches later. Spring Boot's auto configuration uses tested, standard setups. It minimizes those kinds of human errors. It's like having a checklist that's automatically ticked off correctly for you.
Okay, makes sense. Fewer manual steps, fewer places to mess up. But it's not just about the initial setup speed and fewer typos, right? You mentioned modern systems. How does it fit into today's more complex software needs?
Yeah, that's a crucial part of its success. It's really well suited for supporting modern architectures, particularly this concept called microservices.
Right, heard a lot about that, breaking big applications into smaller pieces.
Exactly. Instead of one giant monolithic application, you build lots of small independent services that talk to each other. Each one does a specific job. Think of like an online store. You might have separate services for user accounts, product catalog, shopping cart, payments. Spring Boot makes it much simpler to build and manage these individual little services, which is super important for large-scale applications like you see with big e-commerce sites or streaming platforms. They need that flexibility.
So it helps manage that complexity when you break things down.
Precisely. And that ties into flexibility and scalability. Spring Boot plays well with tons of other tools and technologies, whether you need a traditional SQL database like MySQL, or maybe a NoSQL one like MongoDB, or message queues like RabbitMQ, it integrates easily. You're not locked into one specific way of doing things. And
Right.
crucially, an application you build with Spring Boot can scale. It can start small, maybe for a startup's first product, and grow to handle millions of users without needing a fundamental rewrite.
That scalability is huge.
Yeah, it is. And one last thing here, which is maybe underestimated, is the community and ecosystem. There is a massive, very active community around Spring and Spring Boot. So if you run into a problem, chances are someone else already has. There are tons of tutorials, guides, forums like Stack Overflow. That support network is incredibly valuable, especially when you're learning. You're rarely stuck for long.
That community aspect is definitely a big plus for any technology. Okay, so we see why developers like it. Now let's zoom out. Thinking about the tech landscape today and looking towards, say, 2025, why is Spring Boot not just popular but critically important right now? What's the bigger picture?
Yeah, what's really fascinating is how perfectly Spring Boot seems to fit with the major shifts happening in the industry. First off, the massive rise of cloud computing. Everything's moving to the cloud, right? AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. Spring Boot was practically designed for this world. It makes deploying applications to these cloud platforms really straightforward. Things like packaging your app with its server built in, that's ideal for containerization for cloud environments. It makes deployment simpler, often cheaper.
So it smooths the path to the cloud.
Absolutely. It lets even smaller companies leverage the power of the cloud effectively. It kind of democratizes that capability. Then there's the ongoing demand for microservices, which we touched on. As companies scale up, microservices often become the way to manage complexity. Spring Boot, especially with its sibling project Spring Cloud, is arguably the leading choice for building Java-based microservices. Companies like Netflix, Uber, huge systems built on this model, often rely heavily on the Spring ecosystem.
So if you're learning Spring Boot, you're learning skills relevant to how these huge companies operate.
Definitely. It positions you right at the forefront of that trend. And related to that is the need for rapid development. The business world moves incredibly fast. Companies need to get ideas out the door, test them, iterate quickly. Spring Boot's ability to accelerate that initial development is a massive competitive advantage.
Time to market.
Exactly. Going from concept to a working product in weeks instead of many months, that's huge in competitive fields like fintech, e-commerce, even healthcare tech. It also keeps evolving. There's strong support for modern technologies. It's not stuck in the past. It integrates well with newer trends. Think artificial intelligence, Internet of Things devices, processing real-time data streams. So if you're building, say, the backend system for an AI chatbot, Spring Boot is a very capable choice for handling that. It stays relevant.
It does.
It does. And finally, let's not forget developer productivity and the job market. Because it's easier to use and speeds things up, developers are more productive. That's valuable to companies. And because so many companies use it from tiny startups to Fortune 500 giants, there's just a huge consistent demand for developers who know Spring Boot.
Right. Knowing it opens doors.
It really does.
Right.
Web development, backend engineering, cloud roles. Proficiency in Spring Boot is a very common requirement. It's a solid skill for your resume.
That's a really compelling case for its current importance.
Mm.
Okay, let's make this even more concrete. You mentioned big names like Netflix. Where else might we see Spring Boot working behind the scenes, maybe powering things we use every day?
Oh, it's pretty much everywhere once you start looking. Think about e-commerce. Major players, maybe like an Amazon or similar large online retailers, use systems built with Spring Boot components for handling millions of transactions. Things like searching for products, managing your shopping cart, Processing payments, the backend logic often runs on Spring Boot or related tech for scalability and reliability.
Okay, so big retail.
Yeah. And streaming services, like we said, Netflix is a prime example. Their entire architecture is heavily based on microservices. Spring Boot is a key tool for building those services that manage user profiles, recommendations, the actual video delivery infrastructure, handling massive global scale.
Wow. What about smaller companies?
Absolutely. That's one of its strengths. For startups, imagine a small team building a new mobile app, maybe for food delivery or booking appointments. They can use Spring Boot for the backend, the part that handles user accounts, takes orders, tracks data, processes payments, and they can get that backend up and running quickly with a small team without needing massive infrastructure investment initially.
So it scales down as well as up.
Definitely. And also in finance. Banks, fintech companies, they need highly secure, high-performance systems for things like online banking portals or trading platforms. Spring Boot is very popular there too because it allows building robust, secure applications that can handle sensitive data and high transaction volumes.
It's amazing, really. That range from a small startup's app to global finance and streaming. It shows incredible versatility. So, knowing it powers so much, what does that make you, the listener, think about its potential?
And that naturally leads to the practical question, right? If you are intrigued by all this, how do you actually start learning Spring Boot, especially if you're a beginner?
Yeah, the how-to.
The good news is it's designed to be less intimidating than older Java frameworks. But first things first, learn basic Java. Spring Boot is Java-based. You don't need to be a Java guru, but you need the fundamentals solid. Variables, loops, basic object-oriented concepts.
Makes sense. Got to walk before you can run.
Exactly. There are tons of great free resources, online PithorAcademy, Java Point, official Oracle tutorials, plenty of options to get those basics down. Once you have some Java comfort, then explore Spring Boot tutorials. Websites like Beldung are fantastic. They have tons of practical, focused Spring Boot articles. The official Spring site itself, spring.io, has excellent guides too.
So find some good tutorials.
Yeah, and start simple. Don't try to build a Netflix clone on day one. Build a basic Hello World web page. Then maybe a simple to-do list app. A really helpful tool to know about is the Spring Initializer. It's a website. Start.spring.io. It's like a wizard for starting new Spring Boot projects. You just tick boxes for the features you need, like web, database connection, whatever, and it generates the basic project structure for you. With all the right dependencies included, it saves a ton of manual setup.
Oh, that sounds super useful. Takes away that initial blank page fear.
It really does. Also, don't be afraid to join communities. Stack Overflow's your friend. There are subreddits for Spring Boot. Ask questions. Read other people's questions and answers. You learn a lot that way.
Leverage the community.
Definitely. And the most important thing, practice small projects. Theory is one thing, but actually building stuff is how you learn. Build a simple blog engine. Try connecting to a free public API like a weather API and display the data. Each small project builds your confidence and understanding.
Build, build, build.
That's the key. And why is it worth the effort? Because, like we've discussed, it's so widely used, it is relatively beginner-friendly compared to alternatives, and it teaches you the patterns and practices used in modern software development that focus on simplicity, scalability, cloud readiness. It ensures the skills you learn are relevant for a long time.
So wrapping this up, it really sounds like Spring Boot has been a bit of a game changer, making it faster, much more reliable to build applications, simplifying complex stuff, embracing modern needs like microservices and the cloud.
Yeah, absolutely. And for you listening, hopefully you see it as an accessible doorway into building software with really vast possibilities.
Which leaves us with a final thought to chew on. Given how much Spring Boot automates and simplifies really complex processes, what does that signal about where software development is heading? Are we moving towards a future where more and more of the underlying grunt work gets pre-assembled for us, freeing up developers to focus almost purely on the creative, innovative, problem-solving aspects? Something to think about.